Good day to each and everyone. This is Matthew G. Montalla, and welcome to my lecture video. At this juncture, I would like you to pay attention to my topic entitled Audio-Lingual Method, that is one of the key principles and techniques of the English language teaching methods. Audio-lingual method is composed of two terms, namely the audio, which means a term used to describe any sound or noise that is within a range that human ear is capable of hearing, and lingual, which came from the Latin root word lingua and surprisingly means tongue or relating to speech or language. But basically, it has a simple definition. It's an oral-based approach to drill students in the use of grammatical sentence patterns. But first of all, what is drills or what is drilling? Drilling is a technique that has been used in foreign language classrooms for many years. It was a key feature of audiolingual method approaches to language teaching, which places emphasis on repeating structural patterns through oral practice. And now, let's proceed to the birth of audiolingual method. So it is very important for us to know its origin and how it is being coined by some of our behaviorists and psychologists in the past centuries. First, during the World War II, there was a need for members of the military to learn languages. Historically speaking, the audiolingual method was widely used in the 1950s and 1960s. It developed when American linguists such as Bloomfield and Fries at the time of the 20th century aimed at collecting all indigenous languages spoken in the United States. Then the method became popular when a behaviorist psychologists like Skinner believed that behaviors, including language, were learned through repetition and reinforcement. From about 1947 until 1967, the audiolingual approach was the dominant foreign language teaching method in USA. During the Second World War, America became aware that it needed people, mainly servicemen and soldiers, to learn foreign language very quickly as part of its military operations, being provided with the basic verbal communication skills relying on observation and repetition to build communicative competencies. That is the reason why audiolingual method is also called as the Army method. Then, with the threat of Russia, universities created more language classes. It's because in 1957, Russia launched Sputnik, the first artificial satellite, causing the US government to become concerned about the Americans' isolation from scientific advances in foreign countries due to their lack of proficiency in foreign languages. Then, it is closely linked to the oral approach and structuralist approach and theories in psychology. Oral approach focuses on developing listening and speaking with the effective use of hearing technology. So in this kind of approach, the hearing technology is the most important thing in order for the child's residual hearing to be developed. It aims to help deaf children develop their hearing and speaking ability by using listening and talking in everyday life. So there is a practice in making it more possible in reaching the successful improvement. And also the structural or structuralist approach is a technique used in the arrangement of words in such a way as to form a suitable patterns of sentence. It is also used in examining language in very detailed manner. So it only focuses on the formation of words or the arrangement of words in a certain sentence. And lastly, Professor Nelson Brock of Yale University coined the word audiolingualism in 1964. The new approach, which Yale Professor Nelson Brock dubbed audiolingual, claimed to have transformed language teaching into a science. Audiolingualism views language as a set of structures, including phonemes, morphemes, and syntax, the patterns of which we can be deduced by analyzing the language used by native speakers. The audiolingual syllabus is organized around these linguistic structures, which are represented in dialogues and pattern drills. Then, we have the main characteristics of audiolingual method. First, it is based on the principle of habit formation through repetition and drill. Habit formation is a process by which a behavior, through regular repetition, becomes automatic and habitual. Then, we have ear training in order to develop speaking proficiency. Because in speaking proficiency, there must always the use of hearing ability for us to or for the learners to acquire the target learning strategies. The third one, it is focused on listening and speaking skills. In fact, it is coined from the two terms audio and lingual. Fourth one, memorization of set of phrases and sentences while focusing on intonation and correct pronunciation. So in this term, intonation and pronunciation are directly proportional to each other because when there is a failure in intonation, there is also an incorrect pronunciation form. The fifth one, no clear grammatical explanations are given. Since it is only based on the speaking skills or the formation of some messages or some thoughts that is acquired by students in their language classroom. Then, reinforcement play an important role, especially for the teachers who guides them in making their language learning more possible. The audiolingual method is basically an oral-based approach like the direct method. However, it differs from the direct method in many respects. First, while the direct method emphasizes vocabulary acquisition through exposure to its use in situations, the audiolingual method drills students in the use of grammatical sentence patterns. So, as we evaluate the two methods, so in direct method, it focuses only on vocabulary acquisition, but in audiolingual method, it makes use of the drills for the students to know about the grammatical sentence patterns on how to construct a sentence by the use of what they have learned in their language laboratories. Secondly, the direct method has a strong theoretical base in linguistics and psychology. Most of the principles of behavioral psychology came from Skinner in 1957, were incorporated into this method. So direct method is very theoretical compared to audiolingual. So there are many psychological studies that prove that direct method is composed of effective strategies compared to audiolingual method. Then we have the 15K principles of audiolingual method. The first one is the method is based on the principles of behavior psychology. Since psychology involves the scientific study of mind and behavior, so in this case also, it assesses the behavior of students inside the language or inside the foreign language classroom on how they can be able to acquire knowledge, on how they can improve their language learning according to what their teacher has been given to them. Then, adopted many of the principles and procedures of the direct method, in part as a reaction to the lack of speaking skills of the reading approach. Third one, new material is presented in the form of a dialogue. Not necessarily the formation of new learning material like modules, like online resources, or etc., but also the materials in speaking. Because in speaking, we can convey such knowledge or we can convey such information. For example, a teacher between a student in improving more about its knowledge or about its understanding in a specific topic. The fourth one, it is based on the principle that language learning is habit formation. The method fosters dependence on mimicry, or the act of copying or imitating closely, memorization of set of phrases, and overlearning. So what is the reason behind having an overlearning in audiolingual method? It's because if we learn too much or if we learn so many things in having focus to what we have speak or what we have heard from our choir director, which is our teacher, so we can be able to assess or we can be able to explore those things as we tend to develop more about ourselves. So we students are prone for development as for today because we are engaging in educational patterns or in educational kind of living. So we are educated enough to know about on how to acquire such knowledge, how to acquire such foreign language by the use of our own senses or our own instincts, especially in school. Then we have structures are sequenced and taught one at a time. Structural patterns are taught using repetitive drills. So structural patterns must be in line to the repetitive drills, because repetitive drills enables each component, such like the teacher and the student, to evaluate more where they can improve their vocabularies, where they can improve their speaking skills, where they can improve their teaching methods. So that is one of the most important thing we need to consider when it comes to audiolingual method. Number 6, little or no grammatical explanations are provided. Grammar is taught inductively. So if we say inductively, it is a way to describe something that leads to someone or something else rather, or in short, for development. So grammar is prone for development. Number 7, skills are sequenced. First, listening. Second, speaking. Third, reading. And the fourth is writing. Are developed in order. So there must be a proper schematic pattern in this given skills, because when there's a possibility that when speaking comes first before listening, so there is a unsuccessful communication being produced between a language classroom or in a language context. Number 8 is vocabulary is strictly limited and learned in context. So it is very important also to limit our vocabulary, because there are times that we tend to reach a higher kind of learning without even knowing our limitations. So it is better for us to focus only to what things we are able to do, or what things that we are able to accomplish. Number 9, teaching points are determined by contrastive analysis between L1 and L2. If we say contrastive analysis, it means that a comparison of two languages by paying attention to differences and similarities between languages being compared. For example, we compare Spanish to English. We compare Spanish to Bisaya. We compare Spanish to Korean. So that is one of the example of contrastive analysis, having a comparison between the two foreign language or our vernacular language to the foreign language. Then number 10, there is abundant use of language laboratories, tapes, and visual aids. So what is a language laboratories? Language laboratories are study rooms equipped with electronic sound reproduction devices, enabling students to hear model pronunciations of foreign languages and to record and hear their own voices as they engage in pattern drills. So this is very important also. This is one of the most vital, especially as we keep on making ourselves prone to more advancement or more improvement. So we need also to use this kind of equipment, language laboratories. So as we know that language laboratories does not only affect our credibility as a speaker, but also our cohesive skills in listening and speaking. Number 11, there's an extended pre-reading period at the beginning of the course. So it is very important for us also that we can be able to read in the first place, because if we are not able to read, or we don't have any skills in reading, then we cannot accomplish a certain task that in line with audiolingual method in teaching. Number 12, great importance is given to precise native-like pronunciation. So this is not necessarily that audiolingual method brings a development in acquiring some of the foreign languages, but also to develop and to enhance our native-like pronunciation, because we Filipinos also need to be more flexible, especially to the OFWs who are having their work abroad. They are flexible enough in assessing what kind of language they want to express. For example, when they meet their boss, when they meet their foreign employee, so they can be able to use their foreign language that taught here in our locality rather than the vernacular that they have acquired already during their childhood. 13. Use of the mother tongue by the teacher is permitted but discouraged among and by the students. It's because teacher wants to know or wants to discipline the students to promote their eagerness to learn new kind of language. Because if we focus mainly on doing or on using on our mother tongue, so there will be a possibility that we cannot be able to reach higher level of learning, especially that we are in college. So we tend to learn English, we tend to learn another kind of language for us to be able to assess ourselves in our future career, because we do not know that some of our classmates, some of our relatives, some of our friends will have their work abroad. So must be a focus, or there must be sometimes in the discouragement of the use of mother tongue in this kind of language teaching or in our audiolingual method specifically. 14th, successful responses are reinforced. Great care is taken to prevent learner errors. So there must be a successful responses. So we should not be discouraged by our errors, but we should be inspired by it, because it was created in order for us to reach success. Failure sometimes make us more down, make us feel tired, but somehow it brings knowledge on how to improve ourselves for the betterment of the unison. Number 15, last, there is a tendency to focus on manipulation of target language and to disregard content of meaning. Now let's move on to the 11 key techniques in connection to the application of audiolingual method in language learning. Number 1, make sure that all of the utterances which students will make are actually within the practice pattern. So we need also to consider that this practice pattern they have already taken came from the teacher. So if they are not able to practice it in their whole lives or in their stage of learning, then they can't be more credible enough in taking another step of learning. Second, conduct the drills as rapidly as possible so as to ensure automaticity and to establish a system. So as rapid as we offer to the learners some of the activities, some of the exercises, some of the practices, so they can be able to assess themselves towards their improvement. Third, ignore all but gross errors of pronunciation when drilling for grammar practice. Fourth one, use the shortcuts to keep the pace of drills at the maximum. Use hand motions, signal cards, notes, etc. to cue response. You are a choir director, so choir director here refers to the teacher, because the teacher directs the students in order for the students to be guided enough in partaking what kind of knowledge they want to acquire. Number 5, use normal English stress, intonation, and juncture patterns consistently. So we need to be normal, we need to stabilize ourselves in engaging different stress in English intonation, and to be more consistently, or implies a desire to do a task well, to take obligations to others seriously. We must be serious in partaking the knowledge in this kind of teaching method. Number 6, make sure that the drill material should always be meaningful. If the content words are not known, teach their meanings. So there is a flexibility happens here, wherein a teacher can learn out from the mistakes of the students, and the students can learn out from its mistakes by the help of its teacher. 7, Intersperse short periods of drill, about 10 minutes, with very brief alternative activities to avoid fatigue and boredom. So there is a short limited time given for the students to avoid boredom. So learners also must take time to rest. 8. Introduce the drill in this way. Letter A, focus by writing on the board and given for example. B, exemplify by speaking model sentences. Letter C, explain if a sentence grammatical explanation is needed. And last is drill. Number 9, don't stand in one place. Move about the room, standing next to as many different students as possible to spot check their production. Thus, you will know who to give more practice during individual drilling. So as teacher, or for the teacher, it must be appropriate for them to move around, consulting those students who are lacking or who need more remedies for improvement, so that they can be able to assess it and to guide it for more improvement or for more remarkable enlightenment with its teaching. Then number 10, use the background build-up technique for long and or difficult patterns, such as first, tomorrow, in the cafeteria tomorrow, we'll be eating in the cafeteria tomorrow, then those boys will be eating in the cafeteria tomorrow. So as we see in the example, there is a sudden change in having a sentence structure pattern. So starting from tomorrow until it forms or until it composed of nouns, verbs, and etc. What does it say about language learning? So before I forget, so the last of these technique is also paying attention, because paying attention is one of the most important skill in listening, in writing, in reading, and in speaking. And back to what it is being said earlier, what does it say about language learning? Based in structural linguistics, parts of language can be broken down and follow structural pattern. Second, focus on speaking, as historically speaking came before writing in language production. Next, language is habit formation. Then, need to learn culture as well in order to sound more like a native speaker. In application to teaching, and the goal of the teacher is to, first, able to use the target language communicatively. Second one, learn to use language automatically without stopping to think. And using this method, students are supposed to form new habits in target language. So there is a beneficial effect of having audiolingual method towards teacher and for the students. The merits of audiolingual method. Importance is given to listening and speaking. Reinforcement are used appropriately. Then, correct pronunciation and structure are emphasized and acquired. And lastly, it is grounded in a solid theory of learning, especially the behaviorist theory, which is discussed by one of our reporter in Group 1, the behaviorist theory. Limitations of the audiolingual method. So this method also composed of limitations. And here's the reason why. Equal importance is not given to all of the 4 language skills. What's the reason behind that? Because listening and speaking are given focus compared to reading and writing. Then meaning is neglected and only language form is considered. Third one, it is teacher-centered. Of course, it's because teachers are the one who can direct or who can guide students in this kind of teaching method. And lastly, it is mechanical, or in short, it is very complex. The roles of teachers and students in ELM, in short, the acronym of audio-lingual method. Teacher. Teacher is considered as the orchestral leader, directing and controlling the language behavior of students. So imagining that we are in an orchestra performance, our teacher is our orchestra leader. And we students are the imitators or the choirs, and in short, the singers, following the teacher's direction and respond accurately and as rapidly as possible. And that's all with regards to my report. Muchas gracias y Dios los bendiga a todos. Bye everyone.